welcome to Moments with Melinda. My name is Melinda Moulton, and I am your host. And today I'm with Mima Tipper. Hi, Mima. How are you?
I am great, Melinda. Thanks so much for inviting me. It's like to be here.
Well, I'm so thrilled to have you. And to my viewers, I just want you to know that Mima and I have been friends for a long time. We go
Mhm.
way back. And Mima she is a writer and has been a writer for most of her life. She has received several awards for her work, and she has just completed her first published novel for young readers called Cat's Greek Summer. This is exciting,
Wow, it is exciting.
very exciting, and I'm so thrilled for you that you have been able to capture a lot about your life. So I know we've known each other for a long time, but I want to dig into some things that I don't know about you, and I don't know a whole lot about your childhood. So let's start at the beginning. Share with me a little bit and my viewers a little bit about your childhood growing up.
Okay, well, I grew up mostly in Connecticut, and she's passed away, but she was Greek from Greece, and she met my dad in Brazil. He was American working over in Brazil for one of the oil companies, and they got married and moved back to the States, and she became an American citizen, and they started their family. And she was really an American, so we did not have a lot of Greek in our youth, in our really young youth. And then my parents split up, and when I was probably 6 or 7, and my mother started taking my brother and myself to Greece for the summers to spend that time with the Greek side of the family. And we would go for 6 to 8 weeks, depending on schedules. And funny thing though, I could understand Greek, but I never really learned to speak Greek. And back in the States, it was just very odd to have these two cultures that didn't quite fit together very well. So I love my Greek family, but I always felt like a bit of an outsider. And that's mostly my childhood there. I think
So
that's
why do you feel that they didn't fit together? I mean, you're talking American and Greek, right? And
Oh, well, I'm talking more like New Canaan, Connecticut, preppy New Canaan, Connecticut, in the 70s, and my Greek community, which was, we went to a Greek church, an Orthodox church, but it was about 45 minutes away from where we lived. And it just, none of my friends went there. It was just two different worlds. And so I always felt like a little bit of an alien in both cultures. I mean, more so in the Greek culture, because I think that when there's a language that is very difficult to learn because the alphabet's different and it's not prevalent in the community, it's kind of tough to learn that. And I think also, I'll have to say that because my mother was divorced, a divorced woman, even though she was a leader at the church in what the women's organization was called the Philoptochos, she was real busy with everything, just trying to keep everything going. So I kind of feel that I just felt really like an outsider there. We'd sort of get dragged along and have to just deal.
did she bring her Greek culture into your family? Did you eat Greek food and did she speak Greek?
Well, that's sort of an interesting thing. And I did think about that a lot as I was writing the book, is that she did not, she spoke Greek to her Greek friends and to when we were in Greece, but she was really American. She wanted to be American. She wanted us to be American. And we never really talked about it. I think she just didn't have the energy to try to bring too much of the culture into our daily life. And I think the it was a really rough time for her being a single divorced woman in those days. She really had very little company and very little community in the area where that was most of our community, which was in the New Canaan area. She just felt a bit of an outsider herself, I believe, and but she wanted us to have what she thought was the best possible education. So she kept us in those schools, the school that we were in, which was a nice private school that my grandparents on my dad's side paid for, and she wanted us to have all those opportunities. So I think she just didn't really focus on. I think we were kind of meant to learn the Greek stuff by osmosis. It really was
Fascinating.
not focused.
Fascinating. Well, I'm glad that you have that side in your family because I just got back from Greece well, last summer, and I got to tell
Mhm.
you, it was such a healing experience. So,
Mm.
not just a little bit about your name, Mima. It is
Mm.
unique, and it's a nickname subscribed to you by your mother, but it was repronounced by your brother, who was just a little bit older than you.
Hmm. So I'm named after both of my grandparents, my grandmothers. Catherine Calamira is my name, and but my mother, I mean, that was sort of maybe her one Greek thing. She wanted to call me Mira, and that's a very common name. My grandmother, Yaya Calamira. It's a very common Greek name. It's often shortened to Mira. It appears in many cultures, really, and so she called me that. And then my brother, yeah, he was probably, 11 months older than me, just started calling me Mima. And they thought that was cute, but also the fact that my first cousin was also named Mira. And she was probably 3 years older than I was, I believe. So she was already Mira. And so I think my mom probably figured, oh, well, this is adorable. Let's just keep this nickname. So I just kind of got stuck with that, my
I
real
love it.
name. And if I ever have grandchildren, it'll all make sense. But
Well, yeah, we can have a conversation on the side about this later on about how I got my name.
yeah,
You just do.
oh, there we go.
Yeah. So that's so Cat's Greek Summer, that you're Catherine. So is that how Cats became the title of your book?
Uh, that's like a really good question because I think in another life, my name I would have been called Kate. I feel like that would have been my name. And I think I just really, when I was creating the story, I wanted her to be, actually, I really wanted the character to be as opposite me at that age as possible.
Oh.
So I just kind of like the sound of cat, and I also like the fact that her full name is Katina, which is a Greek kind of a short name actually, and she realizes that in the story that she's like my Greek name Catherine would be Katarini, and her name was Katina. And I also had an aunt named Matina, which I always thought was kind of a cool name. And but I didn't realize until talking to my mother that Katina is actually a short name, a nickname, but it's a kind of it sounds like a full name, but it's actually in Greek it's a nickname. So I just liked the sound of that, and I also liked the half quality of it, that it wasn't even a full Greek name. So she gets unhappy about that later on when she understands that.
I love it, and I want to offer my condolences on the passing of your mother. I'm sorry to hear.
um, yeah, me too. I've missed her. I mean, anyone who's
Well,
close to
you
their mother misses her.
never get over that, do you?
No.
So, who would you say had the greatest impact on your creative pursuits?
Oh, that is another really good question. Hmm. That's a good question. I am not really sure. I mean, I have to say, I don't really feel like I was ever really encouraged to be super creative.
What
And
about a writer? What about encouraged to be, because you're a beautiful writer. So who
um,
could it have been somebody in your, throughout your education or a grandparent?
well, that's a good question. I mean, I would say I was mostly more of a reader. Like I was always a serious reader. And, my mom never took books away from me. She let me read the gamut of whatever I wanted. So school stuff, but I also was reading, Harlequin romances when I got to be sort of a preteen. Just she would come home from the grocery store with like a stack of them. I mean, it wasn't even like picking a book. It was like just grabbing the newest ones and putting them in a pile and handing them to me. I was reading like comic books. I loved horror comics and just anything of that nature. So
You were a
story.
great reader. You were
Yeah, I love
another.
mythology. So I would say probably in college I took a creative writing class, and I still hadn't really found my stories, but I wrote one thing that the professor at that time, his name was David Huddle, and he taught at UVM, and
I know David Huddle. Yes.
somehow he was on loan to Middlebury College, or I'm not sure how that happened. I took a class with him and I wrote one thing that very short piece, and it was actually written from a kid's perspective, which is intriguing because I really didn't think about it at the time. I remember him writing on the piece of on my assignment something like, "This is as good as anything I've ever read." I'm pretty sure that's what
David Huddle, that's a big deal.
yeah, I was like, wow. And of course I never wrote anything else in that class that was as good as anything he'd ever read, but it was a short piece. And it just came out, and I just really heard that it was really based on from something in my childhood. And I was like, wow, okay. And I
That's
just kind of, so maybe I'll give him that credit.
give it up for David
Yeah,
Huddle.
give it up
Let's
for
give it up for David Huddle.
right.
So is that what brought you to Vermont, was UVM?
Actually, I came to Vermont to go to Middlebury.
Okay.
So I went to Middlebury, and my husband Charlie, who you also know very well, went to Middlebury, and we were not sweethearts at Middlebury. We knew each other, but we were not dating. And he stayed in Vermont after college, pretty much. I think he left for a little while, but I didn't. I left and I did a bunch of other things, and I came back here working on a film project because I also was very interested in film, and just felt at home in a way I hadn't felt in a really long time. And then we got together. So of course that was very compelling, in terms of moving here. But I really was thinking of moving here even before we officially started dating. So I just, came back here and just felt really at home. And it wasn't really Middlebury because we didn't spend a lot of time in Middlebury, the town, when we first were together. And just have loved it. I love Vermont. It's the best.
I love that story, how you and Charlie came together. I'm gonna have to talk to you off script too a little bit about that. We'll have to go out for dinner or something. So Mima, you have a Substack where you post essays, short fiction, interviews with authors, booksellers, and librarians, and book recommendations. Talk to us about that. And how can my viewers sign up for your Substack?
Well, I think you have to join Substack to follow a Substack. So that's Substack, Mima Tipper at substack.com. And I decided to do a Substack. My publisher was recommending that if we have any interest to do some writing, that was maybe based around some of our fiction or whatever our creative work was, or books that were coming out, but also just to explore what we really want to share. And I had never really done that before. I didn't have a website. Now I have a website. And I didn't want to do something I wanted to do something that was regular, but not constant. So I figured once a month I could do something. And I just really wanted to focus on things that I'm interested in. So that would be books, writing, and, working at a children's bookstore in Waitsfield at Inkling's Children's Books. I just felt like there's a lot of fun things about books. It would be fun to talk to authors and librarians and to educators and, booksellers about their work. And it just seemed like a really fun opportunity to meet people and ask them very short. I have like 5 questions that I'll ask. I'll come up with 5, or I have 5, and just see what they have to say. And so I just think it's just been really fun to share that. Also to do some writing around other topics that have to do with my writing. Like there are themes in Cat's Greek Summer that I've really wanted to explore. Personally, how I got to them, like my history with running. There's a slight Me Too thread in the book, very subtle, that I wanted to share why that was important to me to include that in her story, because that was something that I experienced. And I think a lot of women and men, actually, in my research, men have experienced where they feel, I guess the way I'd put it is, uncomfortable. It's not like there's tangible, like, oh, I've been assaulted or molested or abused. It's like, I'm a young person, maybe 10 or 11 years old, and I'm uncomfortable. Someone is treating me in a way that I don't like, I don't understand. And just to acknowledge that how important it is to share stories that include those themes, like that theme, for kids to say, wow, it doesn't matter if someone's actually doing something. It's just that I don't feel good about either how close they're standing to me or things they're saying to me or how I feel, and just to feel comfortable to express that. And then I guess there's the other theme of second culture, how having it kind of what I'm calling an intangible second culture can be very disorienting and confusing for a young person, where they want to have access to that culture, but they're not really sure how to do it. And I'm going to present a panel. So far, it's been accepted at the Vermont Library Association about how stories and libraries can support patrons who are interested in exploring their second culture. an intangible second culture. So that's something else.
Well, let us know when that happens. You have a lovely website. It's Mima Tipper, and I'm going to spell it Mima Tipper, TIPPER.com. I encourage my visitors, my viewers, to visit your website. Now, you studied at the Vermont College of Fine Arts and received your MFA, and you have been a writer most of your adult life. So let's dig into your first young adult novel, which is soon to be released, Cat's Greek Summer. Talk to us a little bit about what it's about and what age group it's written for. I'm assuming, any age, what I've seen and read about you in your book, but talk to us a little bit about your book.
Okay, well, Cat's Creek Summer is about Kat Baker, who is a soon-to-be high school freshman, and her plan is to spend the summer before high school training with the high school cross-country team. She sees that as kind of her segue into a very positive high school experience. And her mother, who's Greek, has other ideas and has decided to take Kat and her little brother, to Greece for the summer to spend the time with the Greek side of the family. So between the intense heat, and some of the cultural differences, Kat's running dream becomes pretty challenged, and she starts to make some risky decisions about how to pursue that dream that have her, experiencing things in Greece that have her discovering that self-truth is really at the heart of dreams and family and first love. And that gives her the confidence to speak up when she needs to at a certain point in the novel, and also to, what I'm saying is claim the heritage that's uniquely hers. So that's what the book is about. And the targeted audience, this made it a little tough to get it published when I first tried to follow a more traditional publishing path, because she's 14, it kind of puts the book sort of between like a traditional middle grade book, which is targeted at 8 to 12-year-olds, or most of the young adult books that are being published now, which push kind of older. The characters are generally 16 or 17 or even a little older. So this book kind of falls into a realm that is a kind of a burgeoning new genre for kidlit, because there's a huge demand for stories about 13 and 14-year-olds and 15-year-olds from school librarians and middle school teachers who are so they're kind of calling it young teen lit, which is stories that are really targeted at sixth to ninth graders. So I kind of, that's where this story falls into place.
So, is Kat, you said that Kat was the sort of the antithesis of you. I sort of assumed that probably she is you as a 14-year-old vacationing in Greece. But how many of her experiences are really experiences that you experienced? How many of them are you?
I would say most of the things, of course, it's all heavily fictionalized, but most of the things that happen, except maybe a couple things, actually happened to either me or one of my cousins over the summers that we were there. So most of it it's a lot of it's based on reality. The town Paralia is very loosely based on the town where we used to go every summer that was called Alepahori. That's very different now, but Paralia, the word Paralia means beach in Greek. So I figured that was a great name for a town. And there are many towns in Greece that have Paralia in the name of the town. And I just like the word. I think it's a really great word. So I thought that was a great word. And, the house is very much like the house that we spent summers in, and the no electricity, and the people a lot of them are, Yaya Sophia in the book is, I have to admit, I just cloned my own grandmother, who obviously has passed away, and just wanted to relive my experiences with her. But Kat as a character, she's the polar opposite of me. She has plans, she has attitude, she's asking questions, and I was not that kind of kid. I was very much in the moment, go along with whatever anybody told me to do or did not do, and never push against the tide at that age. So
She's your alter ego.
I really wanted her to be different. And actually in another interview, the interviewer asked me, like, would we be friends? Would Kat and I be friends? And I said, we would be friends now, but back in those days, I would have been scared to death of a cat. I would have been like, oh my gosh, she's so she's intense. I was a lot more like the other character in the story, Uriah, who was a much more modest, quiet, mild mannered.
A gentler spirit. Sounds like
Yeah.
the cat is your alter ego. So
Well, yeah, maybe.
fascinating. How fascinating. To be able to pull that out of you, though, to pull it out of your mind and your heart and your soul, to write about a young woman, a 14-year-old who really isn't like you. There's something deep inside of you, though, that's probably
Yeah, well, and I think meeting a lot of young women today and young girls and teens and maybe my own daughter who just are more in tune with asking questions and more aware of things they want to know and why things are the way they are or not the way they want them to be. And so I think I just was at that time that I was writing Cat, I was exposed to a lot of young girls who I feel were pedal, it's like, wow, I was just in awe of them. And they'd come to the house and hang around, and it's like, boy, you really know what you're about. I like that.
it's beautiful. So you stated that much of your writing reflects your half American and half Greek heritage in some way, and you include references to Greek mythology in your writing. You've shared that often on the trips to Greece to visit your family, you felt confusion and isolation, and that is also reflected in your writing. Talk to us a little bit about those.
Well, I think that was, as I was developing Cat, I mean, the original idea and the story was to write sort of a light, beachy, sun and sand filled YA story. And then as I was writing, as I was drafting and writing, I was like, I found my character going, hey, why is this happening? And what's with that? And why don't I speak Greek? And why haven't we ever come here before? And she really started interrogating these questions. And it really had me thinking a lot more about my own experiences. And of course, at this age, I would talk to my mother, and I just feel like I had a lot more compassion for my mom and what she was going through during our young years, and as well as myself, and just realized, wow, that really did make me feel these ways. I just kind of started to interrogate those feelings and realized that a cat at that age would be feeling that too, just to be in this alien place and not feel like you belong, and you don't really look like anybody else, and your little brother's picking up the language seemingly very quickly, and there's just attitudes you don't really understand. And I definitely felt that. I felt that a lot when I was young, but I didn't really acknowledge it. And I think as an adult looking back, I really was like, wow, that interesting feeling of, that confusion, and also how it could have been different. That there were ways that could have been different. And that made me think more about like this panel that is coming up about how, how libraries really are such a resource in our towns and villages and city centers even, and how people who want to explore their second culture, even if it's not obvious, if they have any. I've talked to many people who are like, oh, I'm half Swedish, or I'm half German, or we never went there, we couldn't afford to go. Or even more recently, speaking to another author who is half Cuban, and he's saying, my experience is one of growing up in a community where we were exiled from the home country. We can't go back. So I only have my imagination and pictures to really understand that. So it just seemed like an interesting topic, and how many people might be able to relate to that. Um,
Fascinating.
and I love mythology. I love Greek mythology. I mean, I just love those stories so much, and as wacky as they are when you look at them through an adult lens, they're pretty wacky. But I really do love them.
So, you have chosen an interesting route to get Cat's Greek Summer published. You did not go through traditional distribution or self-publishing. You used a hybrid model. Share a little bit about that.
Okay, well, so years ago when I wrote the book, and I said I got an agent, and she started to shop it around, and it just wasn't what publishers were buying at that time. So I put it aside and began to work on a lot of other things. And then a friend, Kathy Elkind, who I know you know also, and interviewed her as well. She was writing her memoir about her hiking with her husband, the GR5 in Europe. and she was started telling me about the press that she was using, and I'd never heard of that model of hybrid publishing. And the thing about children's books, a lot of people over the years would say, oh, why didn't you self-publish, why didn't you self-publish? But learning about the publishing industry, especially with books for young people, it's very challenging to get your books into the hands of your readers, because the gatekeepers, parents, caregivers, librarians, teachers really rely on traditional distribution models to find out about books and to get access to books. And so the hybrid model of this particular publisher, She Writes Press and Spark Press, now they're with a larger group called the Stable Book Group. They're, things in publishing are always in motion. But they have traditional publishing. So, traditional distribution. So they have the editorial team and the designers, but they also have a traditional distribution model. And even now it's even more traditional because they've signed with Simon & Schuster, which is one of the big five, for their distribution. So now they have Simon & Schuster as their distributor. And that to me made it possible for this book to find, if they were interested, you still have to submit to a hybrid and they have to accept you into their curated collection. Even though as an author, you're investing in the actual production of the book, they still have, it's still their reputation and their catalog of books. So it's not like you can just say, oh, I want to be part of your catalog. You have to submit to them, they have to accept you. And then, then you kind of move forward with that. So I needed that. I needed the traditional distribution. It wasn't worth it to me to do it otherwise, because there are genres in publishing where it's very possible to be incredibly successful with like a self-published model. And I would pull out, romance and mystery are two genres that I feel are very possible to do well with in a self-published arena, because most of the readers, or a lot of the readers, they read on ebooks, so you don't even have to actually produce a physical book. And they read voraciously. I read, I think a year ago, I was researching genres, and, like romance readers just out of the gate, they read up to 3 or 4 books a week.
Jeez.
And that's something. That's a huge market for writers who want to get books into the hands of the readers. So, but that's not the case with kids' books. Some kids probably read that much, but their parents and the libraries and their teachers are the ones who are bringing books to their attention more than, individual authors. So I needed that distribution, and when I realized that was a possibility, I thought, okay, here's a book that I would love to see in the world. And I think it's a great book. And I was so happy. Spark Press, they just were like, yep, let's do this. And then I was off and running. And I really have been impressed with everything they've done. I love my cover of my book. I am so impressed with the cover they came up with. It's beautiful. And I've gotten so many compliments on it. And, and the reviews. And so I feel real happy.
Yeah, well, you landed in a good place, You landed in a very good place. So now the release of your novel, Cats Creek Summer, is on May 13th, 2025. And there seems to be a great deal of buzz. So where can my viewers, obviously your book will be up on Amazon and in local bookstores, and it'll be everywhere. So will people be able to pre-order, or is it after you do your release that it's going to be available?
Yep, it's available for pre-order. There are links on my website. Children, Inklings children's books will do pre-orders, and I have a link. I'm not sure how to get that to you. I think it's on my site, or it's on my Instagram for sure. Phoenix Books also has a pre-order link, so they are able to pre-order the book. And really anywhere where you shop for books, you can pre-order through any bookstore.
So I'm going to encourage my viewers to go to MIMATIPPER, MimaTipper.com, and there will be a link there for a pre-order. So do you have any events planned? I know you've got a dinner planned at Inklings.
Yep, Dinner with an Author.
Yep.
That's May 16th, and that is, anyone's welcome, but it's really targeted to. So Brian, the owner of Inklings, and I came up with this idea to do events that would hopefully attract some older readers into the shop. And he loves doing events. He's so creative, and so we thought of this. We learned about this idea, Dinner with an Author, where if you create an event for kids to come, have some pizza, and sit and talk to an author that they will want to come and hang out. And it's, it's not a school event, so it's very relaxing. And we've done two. We did one with Catherine Arden in last October for her Halloween themed horror middle grade series, Small Spaces. And then we did one with author Dana Lawrence with her Wayward Creatures, also a upper middle grade novel. And it was so much fun to see these kids. So that's the first event, and anyone's welcome, but it's really hopefully, hoping to have, kids in that targeted age group come. And that's at Inklings. And then, there's the panel at the library. I have an event in New Canaan, Connecticut at Elm Street Books, and I'm in the process of putting together some more events, but I'm not really, I don't think I can talk about those because maybe it won't happen, but
Good for you.
hopefully there'll be other events and school visits and other library. Oh yeah, at the Worthen Library, I'll be speaking in South Hero about Cats Creek Summer as part of the Worthen Summer Speaker Series on June 25th, I believe, from 6 to 7 in the evening, and that will be more of a talk about the writing journey, publishing, and the book. So that's all I've got so far. But
now, Mima, you're a cold water plunger. You've been jumping into Lake Champlain when it's 33 degrees. How's that for you?
I love it. It's the best. It's so good. I've been doing this for about 5 or 6 years. I'm trying to think. 2019, I think, was when it began. And in the wintertime, I will only commit to going in between December 1st and May 1st. I will only commit to going into Lake Champlain once a month. So I pick my day, I go in. Some days it's just the end of the month and you just got to get in. And sometimes I'll go more than that, but mostly I just want to keep my streak going.
Good for you.
And it's great. It's a wonderful reset. There's so many groups that are, there are so many people in Burlington, especially. I'm sure they're all over the state, but Red Hot Chili Dippers.
Yeah, it's really up and coming. It's kind of the thing.
Yeah.
So what words of wisdom would you give our youth today who are growing up in an extremely complicated and challenging world, which is much different from the world we grew up in? What would be your words of wisdom for our youth today?
Oh, words of wisdom. Am I really qualified? I would say, reading is a huge gift and a huge doorway into the worlds that you know and worlds that you don't know. And it also allows you to make your own choices about your pace and what you take from the material and to use your own imagination. So I think reading, being a strong reader, is really one of the most important skills you can have, because it really opens the door to learning anything. And also you're in charge and no one can take it away from you. The power can't go out, or someone can't just decide to get rid of the website or the reading platform when you're in the middle of a book, or decide that the book you're reading is not appropriate for you. So I think that's really important. And I think just try to be as kind as you can be. Just practice kindness. I feel like there was one woman that she passed away pretty young, but I was in high school, and when this woman passed away, it just occurred to me that she was one of those rare people who, as a teen, was just tremendously kind to everybody. She just really didn't. And she was a leader. She was probably, I think she was second head of school, maybe even the head of school, and very popular and smart and a wonderful woman, young girl too. But I just thought, wow, that was what I really remembered about her, was that she just was very kind and was able to be kind without feeling that she was either giving something away or, going to be targeted for that. And I feel like that is someone I really admire. So
authentic. Sounds like she was very authentic. Well, Mima Tipper, this has been a delight. I am so glad that you took this time this morning to meet with me and with my viewers. And I hope to have you back again when you release your next fabulous novel, because I'm sure there's going to be many that are going to follow this one. So thank you so much. Cats Creek Summer, I encourage everyone to look it up. Go to Mima's website and stay abreast on what Mima's up to. So thank you so much for being with me.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity. It's been fun chatting with you, and I've really enjoyed myself. It's great.
Thank you, my friend. And to my beautiful viewers out there, enjoy the spring weather, and I will see you shortly. Goodbye.